Who are you, first of all?
Hi, I'm Stranley Hansworth. I have this little agency called Tether.
Yep.
And we do multidiscipline branding, design, advertising in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, we've talked before,
Yeah.
and you've done design for companies like Gatorade and Starbucks and stuff
Pepsi.
like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come and see what's going on in Seattle design.
Yeah.
What's hot? What's new?
Yeah, you know,
what gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, there's some really fun things happening where we have all these little companies coming to us now, and they have an idea, and they go to our website and they say, "Oh, you're storytellers. You know, we have an idea, but we need a story. We need something more comprehensive to tell the consumer." And so there's this one little company. This is a chocolate bar. It's called Awake, and they came to us with this idea. And this was a sample that they made to verify the product. It's caffeinated chocolate. So this has about as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. Yeah. So chocolate already has a small amount of caffeine, and they've enhanced the caffeine. So they came to us, and they wanted that holistic story. So what we did is we created a story around it, and we first of all we created this really cool identity now, and so now the chocolate bar looks like this. We created a little character. This is Neville the owl, and so now we have all these assets that we can start utilizing across all the consumer touch points. So we have this. We're just starting. They just bought a couple buses. They're wrapping, and this is going to be the Eyes Wide Open tour that's going to go around college campuses, and we hand those out. We hand them out like at testing centers where people fall asleep. So what we really want to do is on the Awake. So the whole thing is about the 3 p.m. We have a little an app where
I need to hand these out in my speaking audiences after lunch, because everybody comes back to after lunch and they're all sleeping.
That's right. Well, we have this whole thing where you go around and you capture anyone who's asleep, and you earn points by taking pictures of people that are asleep, and then you post those, and it has this little scan that says, this person's 82% awake or 57% awake, and then you get this.
So you do a lot of product packaging and storytelling and advertising, that kind of design. Are you doing anything more mind-blowing? Like thinking about how we're going to interface with new things, like Google Glasses, for instance. That's what I'm thinking about all the time. That's what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. We spend a lot of our time trying to find unique ways to reach the consumer in familiar areas. So another fun brand is they're called the Coveteur.com, and they came to us, and they're amazing. They have there's 3 people, and they have this great idea to go into people's closets and to film their closets. They photograph their closets, style them beautifully, and then they show all the stuff, and then you can covet it or like it, yeah. And then you can buy that same product, online. So like you do for Fab and other things, they get a cut of that. Well, they've gotten access to all these amazing people, celebrities, closets, and they go around and shoot them. So we took that idea, and now we're developing that into this whole kind of ecosystem. And how can you move it beyond the closet? Just beyond clothes and all that stuff. And so it was a beautiful little idea that we're taking. So it has a unique spin. Like what's the difference between that and Fab and Guilt and all the different online, all the different e-commerce opportunities. And it's about that. It has that little hook. It's like, well, they got into this, celebrity's closet, and and this is my favorite photographer, and they're in their closet. Wow, look what they're wearing. I got shoes like that, or I want to have shoes like that. So I think we keep trying to find that unique story for each of these brands that we're working with, and the ones that we create.
What's the trick to finding that story for a brand? You know, and I think about it a lot because I'm at Rackspace and I watch like Red Bull, and I have some theories of how they're hacking our brains with what they do, but I'd like to hear you tell me what you think.
Yeah, I guess it's
good brands with good stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at the heart of every brand. Like I've been all day in with a brand that's here, and we're doing a workshop with them. They've been around for a long time. They originated a product. A whole product line. Well, it's similar to Gatorade. We worked with Gatorade. Gatorade originated the sport drink category, and so we worked with Gatorade on how can you move beyond one product and move into all the different areas of that consumer's life. So in the end, we worked with them to come up with this, that Gatorade owns the inside of an athlete. Nike owns the outside, the apparel and footwear and all that. Gatorade owns the inside. Well, so now you can segment product, across, while you're sleeping, while you're awake, before you work out, while you work out, after you work out. You have all these product opportunities now. And then you have, okay, what about services now? So you can move beyond products, into services. So about, motivating you to work out and keeping track and points and all that.
I love how you looked at that you wanted to own the inside, while you knew you couldn't own the outside because Nike owned them already,
right.
or whoever, Adidas or Puma or whatever.
Yeah, so you look at what you do for any brand is you look at what is it that Gatorade can own. Well, 48 years ago, the company started by a couple coaches, doctors who kept football players from fainting on the field by adding salt, electrolyte, to the drink, the water, the flavored water. So they created that category. So now authentically, what can you do to still stay in that zone? So it's just like any great brand, you should be able to find thread it back to the roots of that brand, and whether it's a startup or whether it's a 100-year-old brand.
So these quantified self companies that are coming out, all these guys who are studying sensors on your body, for both athletics and for people like me who are fat people who need to lose some weight.
Yeah.
I have a Fitbit on me, and I have a Fitbit scale, and there's Withings, and there's the Nike Fuel Band, and there's the Jawbone Up. That space has not been owned yet, because that's the space inside your head.
That's right.
The emotional space.
That's right.
And so you could build a whole brand about that. Is that sort of how you start with a company like that?
Yeah, I think any brand is about connecting a need, a need and a want, to a solution of some sort. And with any brand, you've reached that nirvana, that pinnacle, when you've created an emotional connection to that brand. Because when that consumer has created that emotional connection, now you have permission to try stuff. You can experiment. And that's what a lot of brands, especially online brands, you see this a lot now, where they're about one product or service, and then they quickly try to be everything to everybody. It's like, be really good at what you're doing right now. Gain trust with your consumer, and that's when you'll start having the permission to branch out. There's a lot of dangerous stuff going on right now with it's from flipping real estate, now it's flipping online ideas, and all these little tech startups and everything else. Is a flurry of activity going on. Seattle and Silicon Valley and New York and everyone, and that's we get tons of those little companies coming to us, and it's like, geez, that's a terrible idea. It's like, what Can
you give me an example,
what
or
area are you mining? Or they're just really rough ideas. It's like, yeah, we want to sell really cool stuff to to teenagers. And it's like, okay, that's your idea? Yeah, we're going to just curate really cool stuff. Well, okay, we got Fab already, we got Etsy, we got all these, Fancy, we got all these different ones already. So everyone's it's a little feeding frenzy going on, where people are seeing success going on, and so they're trying to, there's a lot of copycat, replica stuff going on.
Welcome to my life. How many times have I been pitched, Pinterest of this or Pinterest of that,
isn't that interesting, where it used to be, there'd be a couple brands that you could really use to describe what you're going to be doing. This is, Ford meets Disney, and now there's, all these little brands like that. And I'd be curious what you think about that when you have to use, like whether you're pitching a movie or pitching a startup, when you have to use other brands to describe what your product is going to be, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Usually not. And usually if you enter a crowded space, i.e., if I was going to build a product in photo sharing space on the cell phone, that's a crowded space. There's like, how many apps on the Apple store are there that are... Mm-hmm. But if you have something unique that you can explain in 30 seconds or less, hey, we have a new kind of photo sharing service, one that snaps together based on where you are, something like that. Okay, now I'm listening. And if you can demonstrate it and it actually works and it's magic and it's 10 times better, then you have a shot. Yeah. But it has to be 10 times better. It has to be, Google was the 17th search engine, right? Yeah, that's right. And it was 10 times better. And demonstratively so. I remember comparing it for the first time, going, well, I had a big website and I knew, who had the best websites that were my competitors. Yeah. And on Yahoo, I wasn't even there, so I knew that was screwed. And then I went to Alta Vista, and there was a porn site right after my site, so I knew that was screwed. Go to Google, and it was right. 10 times better. And that's what it takes. You don't even have to have that good of a story as long as you're 10 times better in a crowded space.
Yeah, that's true.
But how many are 10 times better, Yeah. That's why we have these internal dialogues, like, what the hell are you doing?
Well, and it's also interesting is that really notice that the money's come back now too. Yeah. So all these little startups, there's no problem getting money now. And so it really does come down to the idea now, and it's coming and it's creating. It comes back to the elevator pitch. The screenplay pitch. To the producer. Can you what's compelling? What's differentiated about your idea? And you can tell me in 15 seconds or less. Yeah. If you can't do that, it's probably not a good idea. So we spend a lot of our time, working on that with a lot of these little startups.
How do you empower your designers to do great work, or kick them in the butt so that they, are you like Steve Jobs and say no, that's not good enough, go back and do it again, or do you take them out and let them drive a Ferrari and say this is how everything should feel, Or
and also another good question on that vein is how do you work with your clients? Is it the Steve Jobs philosophy of it's not the consumer's job to know what they need yet? Yeah. Or do you actually work with your clients in a way that respects the consumers and what their opinions are and everything else? That's a good question. But for my designers, it's it's providing a great workplace and environment where creativity it's fostered because there's a sharing of ideas. It's cross-discipline. The industrial designers are sitting next to the interactive, next to the branding, graphic designers, video makers. So you have access to everything from a letterpress, from 100 years ago, to a 3D printer here. So it's that mix and that constant stimulation. I think that and everyone's working. One day you could be working on on Gatorade, and the next day you're working on a woman's fashion site. So I think that's that constant stimulation. It's like the molecules in the hot water, that start bouncing against each other as it works toward a boil. And I think that's kind of this compressed creative environment. That's what happens.
I just was at a talk by a couple of advertising execs. And they said, the product design is being informed by the way it's being distributed on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. Nike Field Band's a good example of this. Do you think about that at all? Do you think about, how is this product going to talk to the world about itself?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, think about that all the time. In fact,
do you have any examples that you're working on? Or?
Yeah, I mean, all the, like the one that I just mentioned, the coveteur.com. It's a fashion website where you go on look at celebrities' closets, and it's curated by a designer and a stylist, and they go in and they shoot these amazing closets. The photographer Jake, he shoots them, and it's just beautiful, very mouth-watering, covetable, but the whole goal, of course, is get people talking about that. And so we've been working a lot on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, all those different sites. How do we get the conversation going? And that's actually now has become kind of the starting point when we start thinking about it, because that's really it's all about whatever you put out there about your brand or product is what you're pushing out, and the consumer's only going to take from that what they will and bring that into their life, into their world, into their Facebook or their Pinterest or whatever it is. And so I think maybe I said this before, but I think it's like I did this talk once where I didn't show anything this when I was at Starbucks. I didn't show anything that we ever created. All I did was show what people said about what we created, and that was the whole presentation. It was really interesting because your brand ends up being that. The perception of what you are, not what you say you are. So I think that's why it's so valuable to start there, because that's where people are going to live. They're not going to live on your website. They're going to snack in all these different areas. Yeah. And that's where we need to start that conversation.
People don't understand why I do this for Rackspace. That's exactly why. Because we're trying to keep our brand fresh and up to date and meet cool people. Yeah. And I study Red Bull a lot because Red Bull is a funny product. It's not even as cool as Gatorade, because Gatorade at least does something to keep you from fainting on the athletic field, right? And so you can't. They really don't talk about their product. They don't have a really great product. They don't talk about their product. No, they talk about the brand all the time.
The brand,
and the brand, they sell $2 billion of this stuff, so it does something for somebody. But how? Because they hacked everybody's brain to make you think you're gonna be cooler if you drink Red Bull than Coca-Cola. Like tonight, you'll could have a rum and Coke. 10 years ago, that was like the drink, and now it's vodka and Red Bull, right? Yeah. How did that happen?
They infiltrated at the right levels. When their sneaky plan, they went into the right sporting events and to touch the consumer at the right time. The tender preteens who were competing in snowboarding events up on their local hill, they went into sponsorship opportunities like that, and they had their clever little minis that with the can on the top that went around cities, and so they became they understood cool. They understood how to create cool. I think they did it in a very smart way, and you're right. They could be selling something besides what they're selling. It's just they created a cool brand that happens to have a product that backs up the premise of of you're on all the time because of the ingredients. But yeah, it's a great example of brilliant marketing and very planned marketing. It doesn't happen by accident and by chance.
No,
very calculated.
In fact, if you're a Red Bull employee, if you work at Red Bull, you're not allowed to wear the Red Bull brand. You're not.
Really?
Yeah, you're not cool enough to wear the Red Bull brand. You're just there to make sure that the cool brand gets to the cool people. You're not cool enough.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've hacked us. I call it brand hacking. How do you hack people's brains?
Yeah, because I don't know. I've been in so many like corporate meetings where people say, "Well, that's not us. We're not going to do that," and it's like, wait a minute, we're marketing to 18-year-old and you're a 45-year-old, how do you know that's not us? So I think that's pretty cool that they do that, yeah.
How do you get people to get outside themselves like that? I'm 47, how do you get me to see the new idea, the new Skrillex or the new music or the new, the new style or the new...
How do we get you to do that?
Yeah, your clients. How do you get your clients to
Yeah,
do you put some LSD in their drinks at lunch or something?
There's nothing like bringing a couple of the consumers in and talking to them. Yeah. And it's so eye-opening, and we, it's on all levels. It's just surprising how little people actually do that. It's not like consumer insight groups really, behind the one-way glass. That I don't think that's that valuable because they're in a controlled environment and they're getting paid for it and all that. But it's just going and talking to them on the street, You know, everything from, you know, with you know, a brand like Gatorade, just talking to the trainers. Yeah. You know, they're the ones that actually are using the equipment that we create. And it's like, and they had lots to say, and we learned a lot from them, and we modified a lot, and we created new products for them, you know, for the athletes to use. And then, you know, going to talking to kids on the street, and it's being able to talk to them in the right way. Because you talk to a teenager, I don't know, I like it, you know. It's like, okay, why do you like it? So a lot of it's through observation and you know, conversation. So yeah, I think there's a real art to that too. But you know, for a lot of us who think they're eternally young, I think more and more, I think it is that mindset, you know, that especially with consuming products online, you know, you know, the demographic thing's just getting blown out of the water now, because someone can't see you. You know, it's not like you're wearing your hat backwards now as a 50-year-old, you know, like a teenager used to do. But you know, you're listening to Skrillex on Spotify. You know, Spotify. I mean, how changed my life. You know, when products like that come along, you know, kids get excited about it. Older folk like us get excited about it because, you know, it's touching, you know, something that we all have in common.
Yeah. Where was I going to go next?
About your stylish beard?
You know what? Well, yeah, we've been touching on the book a little bit here and there. I'm doing a book on context.
I saw that on your channel, yeah.
On how these Google glasses are going to change the world, and maybe you might think of. You know, have you thought about the Google glasses? Have you seen them? Or
I haven't seen them. I've seen where it's seen where all the information appears and everything else. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, the Google glasses are they're very exciting, and they're also disturbing at the same time. You know, because it's entering into that movie world that we always saw that was the future that's now is coming.
The Minority Report future.
That's right. Yeah, but. You know, it's
how do you get people? How do you use design to get people over that freaky line? Because
you know what? I just went to the Grand Canyon 2 weeks ago, and there's Walker Percy is an author who I admire. He wrote this essay. He said that you know, we've come to this point where like tourists will get off by the bustles of the Grand Canyon. They'll take about 10 steps. They'll take a picture. They'll get back on the bus, and they've experienced the Grand Canyon. So the photograph validated that experience for them. If they have a picture, they didn't go there, according to them. So, you know, his whole thing was about challenging us to, you know, give up some of that stuff and just experience life. So that's kind of the opposite of what the Google Glasses is, where it's just, you know, enhanced information, you know, wherever you go, whatever you're looking at, and all that. So it's for those of us that just consume information and can't just watch one thing. You have to have 3 things going on at once. It's very exciting because it's that, you know, maybe it is that we've been inured to that being able to just sit and smell the roses, and we have to have constant stimulation going on with our phone and our device and our, you know, our
I see it the other way, because right now my phone just beat me in my pocket, right? Yeah. It's bothering me, even though my Google Calendar knows I'm meeting with you. So why is it bothering me? You know, it's not very smart.
Yeah.
And these glasses could take us into a contextual age where stuff only appears when we need it, not constantly. If it appears constantly, it'll drive people nuts, and I don't think it'll be a good product.
It'd be interesting to see what it does to products and services too.
Yeah.
You know, is that, you know, right now it, you know, everything's push, or, you know, the push and pull that we have on your device. If it's able to sense needs, and as you're walking down the street, walking into stores and all that, you know, the whole blur between brands, you know, it just becomes needs, and you know, fulfilling wants and desires, but not within these brand buckets that we've kind of created over the years.
You know, when I talk to normal people, consumers, normal people, people who are not in the tech industry, they say they're afraid of Facebook. They don't trust Facebook. Trust is a real deep word for them when you bring it up around Facebook. They look at you like, what are you talking about? How do you take a brand that has a brand problem like that and maybe redesign it or rethink it so that people start to use the word trust with that brand? In other words, how do you sort of did that with Gatorade, right? Gatorade was looking crunky and old, and it's like, oh, that's something that they used in the 70s, and you remade it so that it's modern and new, right?
Yeah, it's all about relevance. You know, it's about making a brand relevant to my life and to that consumer's life. So, you know, trust can work on a lot of levels, whether you don't trust it because it's not relevant to me anymore. You know, you're the brand I liked 10 years ago, but it's not anymore, so I don't trust you. Or it could be an invasive kind of trust, you know, where older people don't trust something that comes electronically into their life. So
here, the word when you dig in on it, they usually say they change too much. The brand changed too much. The design changes, the privacy policy changes.
Oh yeah. With Facebook itself.
With Facebook itself, okay. Yeah. So if you're sitting down with Mark Zuckerberg, what would you be telling him? I guess that's sort of asking for free consulting from Mark Zuckerberg, who really doesn't need free consulting, but I want to see your thinking so that somebody who is in the same spot and is trying to remake their brand knows how to.
Yeah, I think a little bit of that. This was talked about, but the ignorance of Facebook is the consumer. There's no Facebook without consumers. There's the threatened boycott and all that stuff, but. Or also when it went public, it's like give us a little piece of it because it's our company too. So I think that's what happened with Facebook is that it's our brand, because without us it doesn't exist. But that's true with any brand. If you don't buy that product, that brand doesn't exist. Yeah. But that social interaction is the brand. So I think people thought of that in a very personal way, and so. It's like moving the furniture around your living room without asking. But all you have to do is just like prepare them and ask them a little bit, and not permission, but warn them in a nice way that we're going to be changing the furniture next week. So it'll be fun. Let's try it out and see what happens. Yeah. So I think that was part of the misstep on that.
Is there any way to educate people to get them to trust again, or when you have a trust issue with a product that you identify, how do you gain trust or get consumers to look at you different?
Yeah, well, it's all about the consumer will tell you what your brand is. Back to what I said before. And so when you stray from that, when you give them something, a product or services that's not part of who they think you are, they're going to tell you by rejecting it, and that happens a lot, with a lot of brands. So it's listening to the consumer, and there is a reason why. It's just not ignoring them, and we're going to forge ahead with that anyway. So it's just recalibrating and getting back to your core, who you are, what your consumer trusts of you, and then when you build that, when you continue building that trust, then they give you permission to start stepping out a little bit more. So great brands over the years have done that, and they're able to widen the core offering of their brands and all that. But those that have ignored their consumer have done it at their peril.
Yeah. How do you change the belief somebody has of a company? I mean, Steve Jobs did it when he came back to Apple, because everybody was like Wired magazine had the word "pray" on the front with the Apple logo, saying that Apple's going to go away and it's really threatening of hitting bottom. And I can think of two companies, or at least one. RIM is in that position, and Yahoo's in that position. Now, Yahoo just got Marissa Mayer to come, so she brings some of that Google brand over to Yahoo all of a sudden, and now the story has changed. But how do those two companies save themselves? Can they, with somebody's help like yours, or is it deeper than that? Do they really need to make that kind of huge wholesale change to change our belief of what that company is?
I think they did. I mean, it's like something that like a brand guy like me salivates over it. If I could have got my hands on Kodak, at a certain point in time, and that's what RIM and Yahoo are in that position right now. and so it is, going back to your, going back to your roots, going back to your core. Why did we start this company in the first place? What was our differentiated product offering? Okay, everyone else is eating their lunch right now and doing it better than we have, but we were the OGs of the space. So can we reclaim that? And how can we reclaim it? There's Levi's is a good example of a company that was in dire straits and was able to reclaim their territory and come back. And so I think both those brands, they're unbelievable brands, that pioneered space. And if they're willing to cut deep and make sacrifices, but that's what all these brands come down to. You have to be willing to make deep sacrifices. And that's what Steve Jobs did. He came in and just got rid of majority of the products that they were making at the time and slimmed it down to just a couple. Cut back so they could get back to the core and grow.
What other things are keeping you up, getting you up in the morning? What kinds of things do you talk about with your employees? When you're we not necessarily working on a candy bar or something.
Well, one thing that's exciting is that the feeling that we do really have the opportunity to create whatever we can dream up, if it's a good idea. And so that's one thing that we do here is we throw around ideas for new concepts, whether they're product concepts or services concepts that we can get excited about, put our resources behind, and then actually create those into businesses. So being entrepreneurs here, we work with entrepreneurs all the time. We work with 100-year-old entrepreneurs, and it's like, so that feeling, the barriers have gone away now, because of all of our resources and technology now, where you can launch a brand, with little risk. And so that's been really exciting for us, for me, to be able to create products of our own.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for telling me about your world a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Where do we learn more about you?
You go on Tether Inc. TetherInc.com.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Robert.